think you brought up a really solid point. It kind of goes back to like one of my branding keynotes, and I always try to give this example of like branding at scale. And the example I use is like Apple. So Apple itself is a brand, Steve Jobs is a brand, and then the iPhone is a brand. And it's like you guys are saying the same exact thing, but you got the twist of talking about the processes behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
seeing that commonality is definitely refreshing. That's the model that you're going with. So like my next question is like you two as individuals, right? You in your bio, you talking about you guys were fighting. You guys are brothers, obviously growing up, and that's why I was making being facetious in the earlier part of this podcast, talking about are they Iron Man and Captain America? You know, are they on the same team, but occasionally they fight? So my question is like running a partnership is hard enough, but running a partnership with a sibling, how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, like this is a question and that never fails. And to this day, it's not gonna say it's easy, right? Like but we've had multiple conversations almost every single day. We've established systems on how do we actually communicate with these things, how do we solve challenges, assigning responsibilities. There was a stage where we were both jumping on the same calls, we were both doing the same things, we are both doing the same thing. And I remember being on this event and Fonzie comes up to me and he's like, hey, dude, I mean, it's two of us. We should be doing multiple things, right? Like it's like we need to be a little bit smarter. And that was a moment where we started to really look into how we operate on a day to day. How do we actually recognize the strength of somebody
Hmm.
and kind of let go? So for example, like right now we're going through, I feel like that process, right? Like Fonzie is really good at managing and helping and serving the clients that we have right now. On my side, I feel like I'm a little bit stronger on the outreach side of things, on starting those relationships, on managing that. So we're like, okay, with that strength, like I feel actually good doing this. How can we start implementing? Then there's gonna be some friction. We gotta assume that there's gonna be friction coming, because it always comes. And it's like, how can we solve that problem? Like, what is the next thing? So I think establishing systems, for example, we do a weekly meeting every Thursday morning. And we're like, okay, this is the place where we actually talk about the hard things. This is the place where we actually, there's no judgment on the feedback that comes. I remember one day Fonzie called me out because I was being very resistant to very like ideas on changing the process, which is our baby, right? So it's like, okay, how do we do this? And he called me out. He's like, dude, I feel like you're very resistant. Every single time I bring up an idea, like you push back hard.
Hmm.
And we really have to look inside and be like, is this for the benefit of the team? Is this for the benefit of both of us? And we have a very big and powerful why as well. Our families back home, we like to bring them. The goal is to build this business, to be able to provide. And family always comes first. And at the end of the day, we always look at that. We're like, well, we're brothers first, and then we're business partners, right? So it's like, at the end of the day, I really want a good relationship with my brother. And yeah, there's going to be hiccups and there's going to be speed bumps. But at the end of the day, it's like, we have to go back to that. So
Yeah.
there's a few moments that we've had to kind of revisit that point of view.
Yeah. Whether you are a family or not, I think it comes down to communication. Also leave all sorts of expectations aside. I might butcher this a little bit, but I heard it once. Expectations are uncommunicated commitments, right?
Hmm.
And if you have expectations on the other person, guess what? They don't know that. So if you have some expectations, tell them and see if they can be realistic, if they can be met by the other person. So communication is key. And I remember this a while back. I heard from an interview of Tom Bilyeu. He was talking because him and his wife, they used to run Quest together. And I remember them talking about decision making and how important it was, obviously, in every business, very important to make the right decisions. So how do they manage to make important decisions when there's two of them, right? And they might have different opinions. So they shared their process. They had rules around making decisions. If they couldn't agree on something, one of them had to say above the other person. And guess what? That doesn't mean that the other person is more important than the other one. You got to leave your ego aside. At the end of the day, what is the common goal, right? You have your goal, which is to take your business to X, Y, and Z. And is the decision going to benefit this? Yes or no? So if you cannot get to an agreement, well, guess what? My brother has the final say if we need to do something, right? And you got to commit to that and be okay that that might be an option. So sometimes I feel like in partnerships, ego gets in the way, lack of communication, And like my brother said, it's just transparency and honesty, right? If I feel that he is being defensive at certain moments, I will let him know. Sometimes, I let maybe my personal life, which is totally normal, drip into my business and some meetings. And then he calls me out too. He's like, hey, man, like I see you're a little bit down, right? Why don't you go take a break or something? Cool. I appreciate that. And, at the end of the day, I don't think it's a matter of whether you're relatives or not. I think it's a matter of having that common goal and then building a strong foundation on communication, trust, and transparency, honesty, right?